It's a cool, dry day in early December. The snow is getting ready to fall, the shops have put up their Christmas decorations, and the spirit of the holiday season can be felt through the frigid air. But for one 18-year-old boy, that spirit is flowing through him much less than usual. He's having trouble feeling the same positive, nostalgic feelings that usually rush through his psyche during this time of year. And that's because his grandpa is on his last few days. His grandpa, who has always been there for him, who taught him everything he knows about women, cooking, sports, and who always consoles him in times of need, has reached the old age of 92. The young man has always highly revered his grandpa's embodiment of youth, even at such an old age. But this visit might be the last time he gets to see him. As he makes his way towards the room in which his grandpa is staying in the nursing home, he recites in his mind what he's prepared to ask him for a long time now, but has been hesitant to, because he's afraid of what he might learn. If this is really the last time he will see him, it's now or never. "Ah, my young lad," the grandpa says as the young man appears in the doorway. "Have a seat." As the young man comes closer, his grandpa's signs of old age start to become more and more vivid through the wrinkles on his face and big bags under his eyes. He sits down next to his grandpa and, without second guessing it, asks him the question. "Grandpa," he says, "what does it mean to make the most of your life? Even with everything you've taught me, I still feel my life is dull and lacks something. If I'm already feeling this way at 18, then how have you kept your joy towards life until your current age?" The grandpa turns his head to look into the boy's eyes. "Yes," he says, "I can see you don't have it." "Don't have what, Grandpa?" "Well, I suppose the best way to explain it is to tell you a bit about my life's journey," the grandpa says. "When I was your age, I too had a certain distaste towards life. When I looked at the tall buildings, flowers, people, all of these different aspects of life, they looked gray, dull, and boring. I had hobbies, though nothing I was very good at. I was in school, but I didn't like any of my classes. I had some friends, but I wasn't very popular. I never really spoke to the girls my age, and therefore never had a girlfriend. I didn't hate many things, but I also didn't like many things. And so I thought, is this really all there is to life? Is this what existence is? A total drag? Oh, how naive I was. It wouldn't be until I was 22 where I'd figure out what it really means to live. Through some miraculous luck, I managed to get myself a girlfriend. We were both madly in love with each other. My days would be spent laboring away as a mechanic, tirelessly destroying my body, but it was all worth it to see my beautiful woman when I got home. Well, one day, that beautiful woman managed to leave something not so beautiful etched into my heart, and it just so happened to take place on the worst day of my life. I had a particularly terrible day of work and accidentally screwed up a big corporation's most important machine, and they fired me right then and there. With the sweat running down my face, the small droplets of saliva that were appearing out of my boss's mouth while he was yelling at me, and the humiliation that I felt for failing, I was a broken man. But the silver lining of coming back home to my beautiful woman kept me from fully falling apart. After the mistake, they, of course, let me go early that day. When I arrived home and walked through the door, what do I see? My woman with another man. And not just any other man. It was my best friend, Buck. Buck, who I had known before we even knew our ABCs, was sleeping with my woman with no remorse or second thought. And so I had lost my best friend and woman on that day too. After ordering them out of the house, I sat there in despair. Shattered, tired, sobbing, I thought to myself, there are no more reasons to go on. I had reached my lowest point. I'd never felt anything even remotely close to this. The days passed by, and the once small hopes I had for a brighter future continued to dim themselves out ever more. Then, on the day I had my house taken away from me due to me not being able to find a job, it happened. As I sat on a bench in the park, having not felt a single ounce of happiness in the past month, at my wit's end, it suddenly hit me. As I stared forward, listening to the sounds of the tree branches sway, the birds chirping, and the wind gripping my face as it passed by, I felt truly alive for the first time in my life. The depression, dullness, and meaninglessness of my existence suddenly evaporated into thin air, and I felt like I was looking at the world through the eyes of a baby. I had seen this exact park bench before, these trees. I had felt this wind. I had listened to these birds. but it felt as though it was my first time experiencing all of them yet again. The fear and anxiety I had for my hopeless future no longer mattered. I worked many odd jobs just to get by, as a newspaper delivery boy, a plumber, janitor. Hell, I even taught myself how to cut hair and became a barber. I lacked any sort of stability, and I was sleeping on a cold, hard bench every night with the only blanket they let me keep from my old house. And every night, I would go to sleep and think to myself, this is what it really means to experience life. Well, just a short week later, and stability returned once again to my freshly ripened life. I found another woman and worked full-time in the lumber industry as it was in high demand. I developed an extreme passion for it too and became the best worker at my lumber yard. I moved into a nice apartment and grew ever closer with my woman. Once again, I was deeply in love. One could say I was almost even obsessed with the girl. And every night, as I laid in bed next to that beautiful woman, I would think to myself, this is what it really means to experience life. Soon our love faded away and she dumped me over a petty argument. I sobbed, bawled my eyes out like a little kid. I felt extremely sad and for even longer than my first girl. And every night, as I laid down in my bed, alone, feeling distraught and confused about everything that had led me up to this singular point in time and wondering why it happened, I would think to myself, this is what it really means to experience life. I started traveling the world and seeing different cultures and ways of living, which only further enriched the taste I had for the unexplainable sensory experience that seemed to change with each fleeting second. And it was when I was on a trip in Paris to see the Eiffel Tower for the first time that I met your grandma. She had me hooked at first sight, and it was because I could tell that she too had adopted those same eyes as I did when sitting on the park bench that one afternoon. We made so many stories. We laughed together, cried together, got angry together, and then we decided to have a kid. As I caught my first glimpse of my newly born son and looked into his eyes, I felt tears running down mine. And I said to myself, this is what it really means to experience life. The old man then stopped talking, anticipating a response from the young teen. Realizing this, the boy said, "Grandpa, I don't get it." The old man laughed. "Of course you don't, you fool, because it isn't something you can put into words. You have to experience it for yourself. It is only when you are at your lowest point that you can feel what it's really like to be high off of life. How much have you avoided because of the potential failure, embarrassment, or pain it might cause? How can you truly know the full range of emotions of life and experience life in its fullest if you try to block out half of the emotions you deem to be negative? You don't have the faintest clue of what's out there because you don't have the courage to go after it." The young boy remained silent, his head now tilted towards the ground. "Come on now, my boy," the grandpa said. "This is meant to uplift you. Look, I'm sure your parents, my own son, tells you what you should and shouldn't do. I'm sure they want you to play the safe route so you are guaranteed a bright future, because that's just what parents do. But do you really want to be my age, looking back at your life, regretting that you didn't take my words to heart? Listen, the point I'm trying to make is this. Fail hard and fail more often. Try everything you can. Fall in love. Get your heart broken. Scream, cry, get angry, and be happy. See as much of the world as you can, and then gain stability and settle down. Make friends and lose them. Lose everything, then gain everything back. Whatever makes you feel alive, do that, and do it until your hands bleed. And as soon as it no longer fulfills you, then move on to the next thing. No matter what anyone else tells you you should be doing. This world is going to try to put you into a box. It's going to distract you with many things to make it seem like life is a monotonous clock that ticks to the same tune each day. And that will make it seem like life isn't the most inexplicably beautiful, unpredictable, and wondrous creation that we can conceptualize with our limited mind. I am fortunate enough to be laying here, having broken out of that box at a very young age. And I urge you to do the same. You'll never have life figured out. This existence is strange, confusing, and unjust, but that's what makes it worth living in every facet at our disposal. What an incredible thing it is to have eyes that can see all the different textures, colors, and dimensions of life. What a joyous thing it is to be able to hear the pattering of rain on your window, to hear others laugh, to hear all the different sounds of musical instruments. What a gift it is to be able to feel the warm embrace of a woman next to your side, to sense her loving gaze, her lips onto yours. What a thing to forget, but still, we all somehow forget it. To suck all the juice out of life, leave nothing behind but the pit, and constantly remind yourself of the miracle that is taking place as you sit here next to me. That is what you need to do, and I trust that you will, because you have my blood in you. Without saying a word, the young man stood up, gave his grandpa a hug, and left the room. As he returned home, he laid on his bed contemplating the words that his grandpa told him that shook him to his very core. And he too started to develop those same eyes of his grandpa. For the next several weeks, he proceeded to suck all the juice out of life, experiencing the absurdity of it all, evoking all of the mystery through his abilities and senses that were given to him as a human being. And every day, he felt that sense of awe and wonder awakening in him evermore. 3 weeks after that encounter with his grandpa, he received a phone call. It was the nursing home to tell him that his grandpa had peacefully passed away. As he hung up the phone, the boy sat on the side of his bed, looking down. Tears started to pour from his eyes and create a small puddle on his carpeted floor. He looked up to the ceiling and smiled as he said to himself, "This is what it really means to experience life."